My first memory of being at Watcombe is going in through the main front doors and seeing this beautiful, beautiful house, this like gorgeous building, and thinking that it might be okay, that it might be safe here and that it might get better here. It was within the first few days of me being at Watcombe that I met the abuser.
Nima's mental health problems began when she was barely a teenager. She was referred to CAMS, that's the NHS's mental health service for children.
I moved house when I was 14, and that was when my mental health started deteriorating. So I went from being sort of quite anxious and self-harming and having low self-esteem to feeling quite suicidal.
Her treatment eventually led to Watcombe Hall, a privately run residential psychiatric unit, paid for and commissioned by the NHS. But instead of being protected and helped, Nima was exposed to a serial sex offender.
I remember that he used to give me lots of sort of special treatment, so he'd spend more of his time with me than with other patients there when he was on shift. If I was on one-to-one support, so I needed somebody with me all the time, then he would often be my one-to-one. So he would find a way to change or adapt the shift, the staff that were on shift, so that he could spend more time with me.
Did you think anything unnatural was happening then?
Not at all, not at all. I had no idea that what was happening was grooming, absolutely no idea. Right from the beginning with Marcus, I felt that I loved him. I felt that I was in love with him in the kind of relationship you'd have between a girlfriend and a boyfriend. Not for any minute did I ever think or worry or feel that he was doing something wrong.
Nima was just 16, still a highly vulnerable child. But despite this, her abuser began to escalate their relationship.
The longer I was there and the more leave that I was taking with him, the more that we were going on these escorted walks, the further it progressed. So it moved on to he was kissing me, he kissed me, and initially that was sort of like he'd kiss me on the cheek, and then it moved to the lips, and then it moved to him touching different parts of my body.
Nima did not know that the alarm had been raised about her abuser before. She eventually told a member of staff what was happening.
Initially, she seemed surprised, but she didn't say that it was wrong or that it was bad or that it wasn't right. She seemed surprised.
How did you feel after you told her this?
It's really hard to say exactly how telling her made me feel, because at the time I couldn't really recognise that actually I was telling her because I needed her help.
Nima was discharged in June 2017, but the most serious assault took place the day after she left Watcombe Hall and arranged to meet her abuser in his hometown, Shaldon.
It was meant to be like a birthday treat for me, so he bought me a necklace with a little pendant on it, and he'd brought a little picnic, so we were sat in a woods near his home and in quite a secluded area, and we'd put this picnic blanket out and we were sat eating and chatting and laughing, and then I took off my top. I just remember feeling sick, just feeling really, really sick and having this horrible gut feeling that something was wrong.
Marcus Daniel pleaded guilty to 21 offences. He was sentenced to 11 years in prison for sexually abusing 3 teenage girls in his care. Nima's ordeal did not end after she raised the alarm about Danielle's abuse. Her mental health deteriorated and she was told to return for treatment back to Watcombe Hall.
I don't know how anybody would have thought that after experiencing something so traumatic, the correct response, the right response, the response that would have been best for me and my mental health was to put me back into the environment that had been so traumatic, but back into the environment where I'd been abused. My family were, we felt so voiceless and confused and hurt and betrayed that there felt like no point in raising objections. It was like the damage had been done.
Danielle is responsible for abusing Nima, but she also blames her care provider, the Watcombe Group.
They absolutely failed in their duty of care. That there were so many obvious signs and signals and red flags the entire time that I was there as a patient at Watcombe Hall. There were so many signs that suggested that what was happening between me and Marcus was wrong, was horribly wrong.
Nima is suing the Watcombe Group. At the time, it was owned by Four Seasons Healthcare Group, but isn't anymore. In response to Nima's story, they told Sky News, "We deeply regret the harm that Miss Hunt experienced while in the care of Watcombe Hall, which at the time was owned and independently managed by the Watcombe Group. Watcombe Hall failed to meet the expected standards and was subsequently closed in 2017. We are unable to comment further on this specific case until any legal action has concluded." Since the closure of Watcombe Hall, 2 other units run by the Watcombe Group have also been closed, following concerns around the care provided. Another unit was placed into special measures at the start of this year. The current owner of the Watcombe Group has told us improvements have been made since that inspection. Nima blames an inadequate children's mental health system for exposing her to a sexual predator free to abuse vulnerable children.
I don't think I would have ever needed to go into psychiatric hospital if there had been appropriate CAM support in place. Seeing somebody once every 2 weeks was not enough for me at that time. I was really poorly and I needed help, and I needed somebody to really be invested in my care.
Nima's case raises more serious questions about the care we provide to our most vulnerable.
Nima has shone a spotlight on some profound inadequacies in the mental health provision that we give to children and young people.
We raised Nima's case with former Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt. He's the chair of the Health Select Committee, who is holding an inquiry into children's mental health.
Clearly, there are individuals who did the most abhorrent things, who have to take full responsibility under the law for their care. But the system needs improving. That is ultimately the responsibility of the Secretary of State, not just Matt Hancock now, but me when I was Secretary of State. And I do believe that huge effort is being made to improve the care that people like Nima receive. But sometimes the progress feels painfully slow. And that is because fundamentally what we need is a big expansion of our capacity to deliver mental health at all levels.
NHS England responded to Nima's case by saying measures are in place so that patients receive high-quality, safe care from the organisations commissioned to provide care, and contracts are regularly monitored to ensure this happens. The NHS has significantly increased mental health support for people in the community. An additional £975 million every year will be invested in community care by 2023-2024. Nima entered into the system as a vulnerable 13-year-old needing help with her mental health. She's now 20.
I have a diagnosis now of complex post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of what I lived through at Watcombe Hall, of the abuse that I endured there. I still self-harm The severity of my self-harm has really changed since I've been at Watcombe, and I struggle more than I ever have now with my body in its physical form, and the idea of having a woman's body feels really almost sickening to me because of what Marcus did, because of what he made me believe about myself.